Okay, folks, so
The answer is yes.
hi, thanks very much for inviting me. I've been here before. There are a few new faces, so folks who haven't met me before, my name is Stephen Parsons, and I'm a wood turner and a woodworker and a geek, and not necessarily an expert in any of those things, but I'll do my best to give you a little bit of an introduction to this particular software. And I will take it from a point of view of a more general woodworker. Some of you may be aware of the fact that I'm was the chair of the Atlantic Woodworkers Association up until the last AGM. Freed up now a little, Dave, so I think I might be able to come back to this crew now pretty soon. In any event, I guess the thing that because I'm only going to be looking at one software, I'll try and do a couple of demos and show you a few items that are available here. In terms of what we might talk about, and I'll try and move through it as efficiently as we can, but I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of digital modeling. And Gordon has already sort of given you a great introduction, I guess, to some of the things that software and software-based design and modeling can do. And this is an extension of that, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some very specific ways that as a turner and as a woodworker I use this, which is, I guess if you think about the segmenting software, it's really kind of focused on one thing, which is about helping you to understand how to cut the angles and the size and everything like that for your segmenting work. This is a bit more of a general product, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I get out of it. I'll show you a few things that I'm doing both in flat work and in wood turning. Don't think I've got anything with me right now, which is kind of the integrated project. Although I did bring my owls. You will see that over here. We'll have a chat about that a little bit later on. I'll try and do a real quick demo to show you sort of how the product works, and then we'll talk very quickly about, okay, now I've got a design, what do I do with it? So, things that you can do with it, print it, export it, animate it, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we're going with this. So how do you start a project yourself? How do you kind of bring your concept into fruition in the beginning? How do you guys start?
Sometimes you do it out of your head.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just slap a piece of wood on and get her going, I guess sometimes, but not too often. Mostly you're going to want to have some idea as to what you want to do in terms of a design. And like most of you start kind of like this. Sorry, you can't see it too particularly well, but these are a couple of just hand sketches done on some graph paper of some things that I wanted to build. So the one kind of in the background, which you probably can't see much at all, is an original sketch for a pepper mill that I brought in here actually a year or two ago. What are the limitations in terms of going from there into your build? What do you think?
The graph paper itself.
Graph paper, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
no, the thing is that for myself, if I'm doing on graph paper, I lean towards following little blue lines. So all of a sudden, everything is a quarter of an inch
Yeah.
multiples, or 5mm multiples. It becomes limiting, you don't realize it.
What else? What's the limitations of pencil and paper
You
drawings?
can't send it to a friend halfway around the world.
There is that. I think for me, some of the things are, to begin with, trying to get multiple views of that thing. So how do I see it from underneath and on top and, whatever. Each pencil drawing is going to have to give me a particular profile or a view. And that means I might have to make numerous drawings just to get to it. If you like drawing, well, that's okay. Trying to estimate what it looks like with alternate materials. Modeling to scale. In terms of, okay, now I want to change the scale. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Things like manually having to label and dimension all of the drawings, so those are some of the things that from point of view of just pencil and paper sketches are problematic for me. And of course, mistakes.
We don't make mistakes.
Yeah, I know, but some of us do, so. So for me, it's a matter of sort of getting from that drawing to the finished product, which is over here. And so for me, the software, and particularly SketchUp, is the interim step. It's the piece that allows me to actually build it before I build it. And in this particular case, the little sketch that you see in the middle is actually generated by SketchUp software. And it automatically can dimension, label, provide me with all sorts of different views of the product and that sort of thing. So it really gives me an opportunity to kind of really have a look at it before I ever turn on the lathe, right? So, from point of view, this, by the way, is smack. Smack is the design. It's Norwegian for tasteful, which was just a design that I did bring in here a little while ago. Other products that I've sort of done, this is a doll pram I did for a colleague of mine a little while ago. It was intended for a doll pram, but Lily here decided she'd like to try the chariot style. So she's decided that, you know, even my original thoughts as to what it would be would be changed. I bought a tablet for my wife for Christmas, and I thought I might as well try and do a tablet stand for her. And before I ever had to cut anything, I designed it first. Designed the tablet stand in SketchUp, and all of my dimensions again were all kind of there for me before I ever started to cut. Slightly different in terms of where I eventually went, but at least I had the overall dimensions right from the beginning. This is shoulder plane that I'm still working on. Haven't decided yet whether it's going to be bevel up or bevel down or whatever, but it'll eventually happen. And no, that's not mine over there. I wish, but anyway, these are just some of the kinds of things that I've been done in the past. And one of the things that I did, and I brought these in as well to Nova Woodturners a year or two ago. I brought in a few of the ones that I designed. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little while ago, in terms of what I do with the chest sets. So I'm going to just see if I can go right into SketchUp here. So the opening interface, a couple of interesting things about this is that you have a lot of different templates that you can use. And in this particular case, one of them is woodworking, but you also have architectural templates, and that sets up a set of configuration in the software. Woodworking is really good because it immediately puts everything into inches instead of feet or, you know, meters or whatever it might happen to be. So I tend to start with a little bit with the wood turning as a design. And I'm going to have to move this one over there. So you start off with in a sort of a 3D plane. I'm going to just change the view here. I'm not seeing it, unfortunately. I have to kind of work a little bit. Again, this is the same problem in terms of what Gordon struggled with there, was the fact that your resolution is going to be difficult to capture here. I'm going to change the standard view to ISO here. Might be a little better, thank you, Dave.
I was just trying to get it there. I think that's...
So what you're doing is moving around in a kind of 3D environment. And I'm going to very quickly pick up one of the tools here, which is, this is a rectangle tool. So I'm going to start with that. And this is just to give me a bit of a design that I can It is a little tricky at times. There we go. So I'm going to start off with just maybe drawing a spindle or a finial of some sort. So one of the things that you get used to fairly quickly is understanding which views you want to use. This one is selecting perspective right now, and it's better to use parallel projection just so you get rid of some of the funkiness of that. And then the other thing is, in terms of standard views, you can look at, I'm going to use front view here just to get it. So this is basically, because we're going to be doing a finial, I'm actually been working on the profile, which is going to be from center out. So in this particular case, I will pick up, I'll start making a few lines here, just some guidelines for me. And what these do is it helps me to kind of determine some of the shapes within that finial. You can see the guidelines here. I hope you can see the guidelines. Again, it's not a great picture because we're not going direct to the screen here, but I'll just do something really simple here to kind of start. And it'll be probably a pretty ugly finial at the end of the day, but that's just the way it works for now. So the tools up here in this area here are all of our drawing tools and those that use primitives. Primitives, of course, are just basic shapes and lines and vectors and that sort of thing. So I'm going to start off by just drawing a little bit. This is going to be, as far as this finial is concerned, this will be sort of the tenon. And then I can use some of these drawing tools here to start to draw something like beginning shape for that finial. That's probably not what I wanted to do. As I say, this will probably be a pretty ugly finial, but and I will draw a little bit of a circular design here. Once you've sort of finished with the primitives, you can then erase any part of it that you don't really want, and so it becomes fairly easy to fairly quickly get a shape here. Now, one of the interesting things about this product is that even though you're looking at right now let me just zoom in here a little bit. Just take that off. There we go. Although we've got these are our primitive starts here, it's relatively easy now to get that into a different view. So I'm now going to add in an extrusion. So an extrusion is just a way for me to take this two-dimensional object and make it into an object that will have three dimensions and will be circular. And the way that you do that here, use my pick tool here. I'm going to select this shape, this circular shape. I use something called a follow me tool, and then I choose the design. So, ugly finial, as I said, but you know, you get the idea. But relatively easy once you've got the profile to be able to then put, create some imagery from there. You'll notice up on the top here, there's some funky stuff going on here at the top, and that's just again because I really didn't take the time to really do a nice design out of there. And also, you can see that the overall that dimension is probably a bit too fat unless I'm doing something very funky with that.
Can you specify, let's say the bottom on that is you want to have it, they say, 3/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
Can you specify that in there somewhere?
So, let me show you what's happening here. I think this one is probably... Gonna go back to a perspective view and we'll use an ISO. So if I look at the bottom here now, it actually is hollow right now at this moment, but it's easy enough for me to do something called healing, which is just basically about, pencil, which is just basically taking one part of it and mark it across there, and that will heal that particular open space that's there. The other thing is, because I went from the middle, and I used the origin as a way to build from, I can do a couple of things here that are related to that whole idea of, where are you? Oh, there you are. So the first is I have a measuring tool which will allow me to identify, well, what's the measure from there to the outside? This right now is 60 point whatever, 68 and 27/64. And that's okay, because I started it out large, and I will always start it like massively oversized, because if I'm going to put any fine detail in there, if you start off at a really small amount, the calculation by the computer would basically freak out. It just doesn't have enough fineness at that level. But if I select this now, which is 68 inches, and I say I want that half an inch, it's going to ask me, do I want to resize the model? And I'll say, yeah. And it's pretty tiny down there right now. So I'd have to go in and zoom in a fair bit there to get a look at it. But now this radius from that area now should be a half inch, which means that tenon is an inch basically. And I can use this other tool here, which is really important. This is a dimensioning tool here, and this is especially useful in terms of now labeling that information. So when you're bringing it out as a plan, or you're about to start in and you want to know exactly what are these dimensions that I'm working with, you can see the half-inch dimension has now been added to it. And again, I can do that dimension from the top to the bottom, any of the parts that are in place. And so this allows me to do a lot of labeling, so that when I go down to start in on my work, I know exactly where I want to set my calipers and so on at any particular point in the model.
Having turned it into a 3D model, are you able to reduce the size of the tenon without reducing the size of the whole finial?
Yep, and a couple of different ways that I can do that. There is a tool here which is called an offset, and so if I select that particular, if I select this particular object, which is, oh, actually I need to get rid of the pencil line there first. So if I select that object right now, I can use something called an offset tool here, and that will allow me to actually change the dimension of that. Now it stays out there, but I can now erase or remove the outer portion of it so that I can now have my offset being as part of it. The other thing I can do with that, by the way, is if I want to hollow that out at this point, I can also push this up like so, right? And change all sorts of dimensions within there in terms of creating, some interesting work there.
Can you make 2D layout drawings from the 3D?
Yeah, let me show you one here. So, and this is what I think is one of the more important things that I can do with this. I'm going to save that. That was really ugly. So this is again, it's a bowl shape, whatever sort of thing. And one of the things that's really interesting here is that you'll see this little kind of square around it, this rectangle. This is called a section plane. So what it's actually going to do is slice right through. I'll turn on, this first. Turn on the active cut, and you can see that what it's done is sliced right through that particular object which I've drawn. And now I can actually take this shape, I can export it, I can create a group from that particular slice, bring it out from here, I can export it into DXF or DWG files, which can be used by other software. I'm going to show you just one other little thing here before I move on to general comments. All right, I'm going to show you this one because it's kind of important to my work, or it has been anyway for some time. That's it. I'm afraid this mouse is not the most fun to work with.
Trackball would be better, right?
Yeah, maybe, again, I'm not used to trackball, but this
Okay.
this is kind of an old mouse. This is not the one that I would normally use. I've got a high resolution mouse that I would normally use for this stuff, so bear with me just 1 second here. In terms of how I have used it, recently, if you will, in the same fashion that I just showed you how you can make a two-dimensional object and then add the profile to it so it becomes three-dimensional. That's really important, I guess, to do the three-dimension if I want to show a client what's going on, or I'd like to have a look at it or spin it around, or take different views of it. But the other thing is the ability to take that particular profile here and export it out to other products like CorelDRAW, AutoCAD, or other programs that can read DXF files. One of the great things about that is I can then take that and send it to somebody like Trevor, who has a laser printer, and generate templates from a copier, right? From a laser copier. This is a copier that goes on my laser, or my lathe. If you want to take a look at that,
Let's see if I can get it on the screen here.
I'll show a couple more here. So these are all different templates that fit inside of that, right?
Well, that's the one
So I've got a
that
king and
last
queen
year.
there, I've got some pawns, I've got some rooks, and these are all different shapes that I'm able to cut, because I can take that design, export it out to somebody like, and again, I've got a laser, but it certainly won't cut acrylic as well as Trevor's does, right? So,
3D printer too?
what's that?
Use it on.
Could do a 3D printer, yeah. But this stuff is so accurate, it allows me to consistently turn that chess piece over and over and over again at exactly, what I'm looking for there.
Oh.
Alright, let me go back to. So, so there's lots of different types of projects that I can do with this, and really, the things that I find that's useful from point of view of what SketchUp allows me to do, it allows me to dimension that stuff, because I can scale anything to any size that I particularly want. I can take that, you saw that profile, the slice that was in there, I could now print that out on a printer and use it behind my piece as I'm working to follow my, if I'm not using something like that, or if I just want something as a guide to sort of go by, and it doesn't have to be absolutely accurate, but it's sometimes printing just for illustration, so I got a sense of it. I find that's particularly true when I'm doing things like finials. Like maybe I'm doing Christmas decorations and I want to do 20 different finials, so I'll go and design them all, print them out, and just have them up so I've got an idea where I want to go with the next set of items that I want to do. And so it really gives me that opportunity. So I can print for a template, I can print for illustration, I can print for a plan, because I can have all that dimensioning on there, right? The other thing to keep in mind is, especially for some of the client work that I'm doing, I don't want to, we want to do non-destructive testing, if you will, NDT, right? So, even if you are a wood waster, you don't want to waste wood if you don't have to. And in the case of what I did here, for example, I hope this will come up in the right place. I was able to generate for this particular client. Just you can, well, let's see if I can do this. So for this client, this was Lily's little love buggy that I created for her. One of the things that it allowed me to do is to take a look at this item, and we were able to sort of spin it around and get a look at how the construction might go, and it really gave the client a whole different look at what the product might look like. And again, this is all done in that same product in SketchUp. Before I ever started to cut a piece of wood. So we adjusted the handlebar. We wanted it eventually to look a little bit like Mother Goose. That was kind of the shape that was intended. The little heart shapes weren't in the original design, and we punched out a couple of those in the board and that sort of thing. To me, I guess the thing that really is important is that by the time I actually get to cutting any wood, I feel like I've already done it, right? Yeah, so then the other thing is being able to show multiple scenes, generating a cut list. So just as Gordon had talked about the idea that some of that software will give you an idea of how much lumber you're going to need, there are products that come with SketchUp that allows you to be able to do a cut list, to generate plans, and of course doing a prototype and walkthrough like that is extremely valuable. Again, similar to what Gordon was talking about in terms of the software he was looking at, there's all kinds of free tutorials, and SketchUp has a really, really vibrant community, both on the SketchUp site as well as in YouTube, and anywhere that you can Google, you'll find thousands and thousands of them. There are free videos on the site itself, all kinds of community forums. And of course, there's a number of places here in which you can take classes. I actually have done a couple here, Gary, right? In terms of having people come in, bring in their computer, and sit down, and we'll work through building something or another. So there's a number of other folks who are also doing some of that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll go with another one at some point down the road. Basically, there's free and pro versions. What I was working with here is the pro version. I think it's a bit pricey, certainly a lot more pricey than anything Gordon was talking about. But you can get a free version. What's going to happen now with the newest version, where they've got everything in the cloud, is they'll give you 30 days to play with the pro version, completely wide open, all the tools available to you for 30 days. Then it's going to say, oh, would you like to now buy this? And then you're going to say no, and it'll allow you to use the free version forever after that, but it's a browser-based version. It's not a downloadable one. If you can get a copy of one of the older versions, 2017 or below, you can actually get a free version that runs flat out. It won't give you all those tools, like you won't be able to export to DXF and things like that, but you get most of it there. I do like it for being able to evaluate designs and using that non-destructive testing. I love the fact that I can export it, and once I've exported it, I can run it through a CNC, and run it through a laser. It can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, that stuff that Trevor did for me was just great, and it's allowed me to sort of turn out a lot of chess pieces in much faster than I would normally. Printing templates, and as I said, the most important thing for me is, after I've done this design, by the time I've got it all worked out, and got all the bugs worked out of it, I feel like I've already built it at least once, sometimes 2 or 3 times. And although you're not getting the muscle memory you do from putting a chisel on wood, you certainly got all the conceptual ideas in your mind. You know what you're going to probably struggle through. So that's kind of my spiel on SketchUp. Any questions? Or? I hope you'll give it a try. There is, as I say, free version up there. And, you know, if at some point in time we're able to get another one here, maybe I'll have a chat with the Lee Valley folks about maybe putting in another class here.
One for the guild if you want.
What's that?
We might be able to run one for the guild if you want.
Yeah, yeah, possibly. So
There's
folks,
an awful lot of CAD programs out there now. Rhino CAD, and there's the Granddaddy AutoCAD.
yeah,
CorelCAD's got one out that I'm looking at, and it's almost comparable to AutoCAD, but not as expensive.
yeah. Yeah, and again, it's what you want to pay for, but there's so much out there that's available
But they
now.
changed it so much now.
Yeah,
AutoCAD, for instance, you used to pay $5 or $6 grand and you bought your box and you had it forever.
yeah,
Now you pay, I think it's $1,200 and it's a 1-year license. At the end of the year, software stops. You pay it again.
yeah.
Unless you know hacker.
Yeah.
They've all gone that way. Adobe Photoshop is another one. It used to be that it was a relatively, you know, you could buy that and it wasn't gonna break the bank. Nowadays, you can't get near any of the Adobe suite for under $800 or $900. If you're a student or an instructor, and this is how I get away with this, by the way, I can send them a copy of my paycheck from Nova Scotia Community College and they say, okay, yeah, well, you're a teacher, okay, you get it for, you know, I don't know, I get some small nominal fee or something like that. But if you can prove that you're a student or a teacher, you will get a different rate, that sort of thing. Yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.